Hello, 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 and welcome to PitchZone, a weekly program that's designed to help you take your presentations to the next level. My name is Claudio. I'm a presentation coach, and I host this show together with my dear friend Nathan Gold, hailing from San Francisco. Hello, Nathan.
Hello, hello, good morning, good evening, wherever you are, as Claudio says.
So you are joining us from California, and today we have a very international gathering here because our guest is joining us from China. Our guest today is Fursey Gotuaco. Well, I butchered that just up, but we'll bring him in and he can correct me. Fursey, welcome to PitchZone. It's such a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Claudio. Hello, Nathan. It's great being here. Thank you all very much for having me.
Fantastic. Firstly, when we were talking backstage before the show started, you mentioned 30 years of theater and speech coaching locally there in China, not stepping out to the world like Claudio and I have done in the past. So I'm curious, what drives you? What is it that 30 years of this stuff? Tell us, what is it inside you that makes you wake up every day and want to do this every day?
I appreciate that question, Nathan. I was born to be a teacher. I really was. I was born. I knew at a very young age this is something I wanted to do. Now, I do have to tell you, I'm actually spent most of my life in Texas as a teacher. I've spent some time in Vancouver, Canada, and in Texas and Dallas Fort Worth area, and I've only come out to China recently to teach at an international school. But teaching wherever you are in the world is oftentimes the same. It's you making a connection with a kid and trying to unlock something within that person that they may not have even known they had. It's a beautiful thing.
Mm. Wow, it is amazing because I always appreciate people who, as a mission in life, see themselves as a teacher and a guide. And for you to do this 30 years already, it's absolutely amazing. And I look forward to learning some tips and tricks because you've been teaching theater. And theater is, of course, all about expression, vocal expression with your body, with your face, with your gestures. So I really look forward to an engaging discussion here. But before we really dive in, let me quickly say hello to our viewers online. We have from Bangkok this time, Marco Vezzale, also known as Massimo. Marco, a real pleasure seeing you here today. I'm glad you could make it. I know you're traveling, and I hope Bangkok is good to you. And we also have Yash. Yash joining us from India. Yash, real pleasure seeing you here. And if you are just joining us, please say hello in the comments, and we will make sure that this becomes a really engaging session here that you will be participating in and not just passively listening here. And then, of course, we have the gift tailor, Samantha, joining us from Dallas. Samantha, so good to see you here. So, Fursey, teaching at theaters or teaching theatrics. Tell us a little bit about how did you get into this? Because there are so many fields that you can teach, right? How did you choose the direction of expression?
In some ways, I fell into it by accident. I wasn't sure what I wanted to teach. Even though I had a theater teacher in high school, it didn't dawn on me that this is a career I could have. But when I was in college, I was going through my education classes and I figured I was going to be teaching English. And you take different classes, right? You experiment, you try different things. And I had to have a fine arts credit. So I took a theater class. Boom! Beautiful. Loved it. Never looked back. It was great.
That's amazing. I remember the day I was in university and I took a theater class and I told the professor, I just want to do the camera work. I don't want to be an actor. He said, okay, go right ahead and do that. So I learned how to use the camera, and about 2 weeks into it, I got real jealous. And I went up to him and I said, do you think you could get somebody else to do the camera? Because I want to be out there on the stage learning those techniques that you're all teaching people on how to be in the moment in a play or a skit or something like that. So I'd like you to maybe start telling us a little bit about, where do you start with somebody that comes to you and says, hey, I got this really important presentation, pitch, talk, keynote. Where do you begin with people? Once you understand a little bit about where they are, how do you approach your teaching, training, and coaching with somebody that has a high stakes presentation like a TED or a TEDx talk, let's say?
That's a great question, Nathan. And I appreciate the fact that you started out behind the camera, then you came out in front. And that in of itself is a huge part of the journey, isn't it? That's a huge part of the journey right there. Understanding that you go from shining a spotlight on somebody else to being in the spotlight yourself and wondering, what do I want to share? What am I trying to say? Using your voice, not the little voice, but the big voice. And I think that's really
Mm.
where I start with people when I'm coaching them. What's your point? What are you trying to say? What's really in your heart that you're trying to say? And what do you want to share? And that sometimes is the toughest thing for working with students, is they don't really know what it is that they're trying to say. But that's where I get the most joy, helping them understand that they've got something within them that they can share, and they don't need more knowledge from a book. They don't need to do more research. So much of it is right there in their heart. They simply have to be a little introspective and give themselves a moment to find themselves, to step out from behind the camera and step into the spotlight.
And how do you get people to get over that, what many people like to call that imposter syndrome, in terms of trying to be somebody that maybe internally inside they're not feeling authentic or natural? Like, how do you get people, because I struggle with this all of the time. People want to get up there and they want to be certain ways, but then it's not really who they are. And when we get them to just talk naturally without the cameras on and just freely, they're really, most people are very engaging if they would just get out of their own way. So how do you get people out of their own way?
I ask them what they had for dinner. No, I mean, but seriously, that's one of the things I do when I'm working with young actors and they feel like they have to, do Royal Shakespeare, and I would sort of relax and have them relax, and I would simply say, so what did you have for dinner? Oh, what's your favorite meal? Oh, okay, yeah, you like that? Okay, do you like it like this? Do you like that? And all of a sudden, you hear their voice change. You hear it in their voice. They go from this affected voice to, oh, okay, Mr. G. Well, and then all of a sudden you say, okay, now start your lines.
I
Start your
actually
lines
thought
right
it was
from
a
where you're
joke.
at.
I thought you were joking when you said, I asked him what's for dinner. We all laughed out loud. I thought, well, this is a joke, but it wasn't a joke. That was real. What a great
It's
idea. Get them
real.
to just
Well,
go
everything
right
starts
down
out
to,
as a joke, and you figure out what works.
well, maybe for you. I wish I got to take lessons from you. We were laughing our butts off before this show started. So I can't wait to see what happens during the show. Amazing.
Now, firstly, one thing that is very, very apparent already within 10 minutes is you have a tremendously good sense of humor. And how do you see the role of humor in effective presenting or communicating, for that matter, in general?
That's a great question as well. I don't think that humor has to always be about entertaining. Obviously, that's part of it. But I think what humor really is the opportunity to bond. It's an opportunity to find common ground, because if you're laughing at a joke and I'm laughing at a joke, that means we both see something the same way. And humor releases some of that nervous tension, that awkward tension. Humor allows us to break through some of the walls. When you're working with kids, you've got to break through a lot of stuff especially if you're an administrator. As a principal, and you're having to deal with a kid on their worst day, right? When they go off and do something silly, it's usually because they're having one of the worst days of their life. And I got to somehow break through that brick wall
Mm,
and getting them to laugh with a lot of my really bad jokes is one way to disarm them and let them know we're going to be okay together. We're in this
mhm,
together. And same thing with an audience. We're in this together. If I may, I'd like to extend on that just a little bit more.
mhm,
You know, I do a lot of job interviewing. As a principal, I'm hiring teachers. And after you go through the usual questions that you would expect to ask a teacher, you know, what's their training, what's this, what's that, what's their subject area, yada, yada, yada. I say, I'm about to ask you the most important question. Are you ready? And they'll go, oh, okay. And then I tell them, listen, 50% of the people I ask don't even answer. Like, it's such a hard question, they won't even answer me. Now they're like, oh, sure, go ahead. Educational psychology, let's go. Math, let's go. And then that's when I say, tell me a joke.
mhm.
Stuns them. Stuns them. And they always ask at the end, so why did you ask me that question? I said, when's the last time you enjoyed learning from a teacher who didn't have a sense of humor?
Mm,
When you're
Lesson
having
learned.
your work, right? When you're having your worst day, you
mhm.
want a teacher to be able to laugh with you and speak with you. If a kid decides to challenge a teacher, say something really obnoxious, sometimes the best thing a teacher can do is laugh and go, "Yep, that's good. Okay, let's move on." Because if you decide to challenge a kid, now we got a problem. Now we got a problem. Now you've got him, and now we're going to the principal's office. But if you simply laugh and let them know, oh, I can laugh with you, I can laugh at myself,
Mhm,
we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay.
mhm.
That's how I see humor.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And Marco actually asked a question that goes along that line a little bit. If you can keep teenagers focused on what you're saying, you can handle any audience. Do you have any anecdotes from your teachings that can be used to help with a difficult audience? Or do you even see audiences as difficult and easy? What are your thoughts around that?
Audiences can be difficult, and they're getting more and more difficult thanks to thanks to the cell phone. Hello. I mean, you what is I think you've got about 10-15 seconds before they're thumbing their way through some universe, you know? And even online, like even right now, online, Marco. And thanks for the question, by the way, Marco. You know, people have mastered this. Oh, I'm in class right now. They're really on their phones. I think when you've got kids in class, realize that their minds are going a mile a minute and in many different directions. And oftentimes their minds are going towards that really good looking person over there. So they're not paying attention to you at all. I could be showing movies on my head and they still wouldn't care. But if I can engage them with interesting things about the subject matter or asking them about themselves, I think that's one way to engage your audience, whether it's in a classroom or in a bigger space or even in a one on one situation. You're asking people about who they are, you're asking people about their lives, you're prodding a little bit and you're opening that door to get them to share their story. If they can share their story and engage with what you're talking about, I think we've got ourselves an audience.
And that's really no different than what we do in the adult world, is it, Percy? I mean, your
I
story about the
agree.
students and what you do with them and how you work with them and how you try to keep them from getting defensive and all of that, everything you were saying there in my mind, I was hearing, well, this is no different than what happens in a presentation where somebody's trying to attack you or somebody's not happy in the room. And so, how do you, what I'm curious about is, we're not born we're not with humor in our minds. We don't, we don't naturally, some of us maybe naturally, but many of us feel like humor is something that we have to force. So, what could you suggest to our audience here if they wanted to learn? I don't think anybody doesn't want to be a little bit more funny, but for the right reasons. How in a business setting, humor is perfect. But how do you learn to do that? What would you suggest to people to learn how to do that?
Oftentimes, humor has a target.
Mm.
And the first target you want to have is yourself. You got to be okay to make fun of yourself and let people know it's okay to be self-effacing, and it's okay to let them kind of poke fun at you, and it's all right. It disarms everyone. You don't want to make fun of someone in the audience.
Oh,
Hmm.
oh,
Let's see, a little bit frozen here. Maybe he's gonna come back immediately.
there
And
he is.
There
There,
we
yes,
go.
he is back. All right, all right. So
I
just
did
back up one
exactly
or
what
two
you said,
sentences.
Claudio. I just shook my head
Shake
when
your
you.
head, right? It helps.
So I think we have to be able to make fun of ourselves and let the audience know that it's okay to do that, and find those things, like I said, that are in common, and
mm,
we simply mention it, and everybody finds it humorous because it's something we all have an experience with, like bad traffic or bad hair days, or, well, maybe not that one.
oh my goodness, you're just so much fun. So, could you share with us your favorite exercise or technique that you give people when they're just about ready to walk out on stage, or an important presentation is coming and they're waiting on the sidelines and they're feeling those nerves and that anxiety, whether they're prepared or not? Could you share one or two of your favorite techniques that you get them to do so that all of us can learn more about how to manage our nerves?
Sometimes people are very stressed out right before going on stage, so I crack a joke, a simple
Mm,
one, like this one. Nathan, if I could work with you on this one, it's going to be a knock knock joke. And
okay.
Nathan, would you go ahead and start that, please?
Knock, knock.
Who's there? There it is. See you later. Love that joke. And if you could distract people for just a second, just a
Okay.
brief second, right? We
Okay.
can just like laugh at ourselves and then go out there and release that
Sure.
tension within ourselves. The other thing, I hum. I do a lot of humming to center
Mm,
myself and warm up my throat, and it brings the attention. If I tell them to hum and do it lightly on the lips, get it to vibrate, it moves the sound forward in their mouth.
ooh,
And doing that
mm,
with students is really good.
mm,
It also focuses on something very specific, so that instead of being in our heads and
mm,
worrying about all the things that we're worried about, being anxious in front of an audience, now I'm focusing on my throat, I'm focusing on my lips, I'm focusing on my breathing. I'm focusing on relaxing in my diaphragm so that I can project my voice a little bit. I'll usually talk to them about their warm ups. I will have worked with them on warm ups that they can do before they practice, rehearse, and then, of course, before they go out to speak, perform. And that includes even facial expressions, warming up your face with the big
mm,
face, big face, little face. If they can focus on physical things, it takes their mind off their brains and anxiety, and it takes their minds off their emotions.
mm.
Now,
Amazing.
Fursey, you are a very, very dedicated Toastmaster as well. And Toastmasters, for those that are not familiar with the organization, it's a great organization, 100 years old, that has helped millions of people become more confident in front of an audience. And part of the Toastmasters experience is the World Championship of Public Speaking. Now, you have competed in those contests. You've made it to the final, right? You were on stage with the last eight, correct?
Yes, sir. I've been a fortunate individual. I really have. I've been
Hmm.
lucky. I've had people supporting me, and I got to the World Championship of Public Speaking. And it starts out, I'm sure many of you know, it starts out with 35,000 people who are entering the contest worldwide. and then through a series of contests, you get to the final 8 in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a great experience. I mean, the whole journey is a great experience because you're taking the same speech and working it and working it and working it.
Mm-hmm.
And you really get an opportunity to fine tune. You really get an opportunity to, as Covey says, sharpen the saw, right?
Yep.
You really
Yep.
get that point. And it's a great experience. Great experience. Plus all the
So,
people that help you out along the way. It's awesome.
so what was your topic? What was the title of your speech?
Well, one speech I did was called The Dark.
The
I think a
dark.
lot of times, yeah, a lot of times people focus on the light, that they are the
Yeah.
light and they you
Yeah.
share your light with others, and
Love it.
that's what a lot of folks focus on, and I think that's great.
And
But
it's
I talked about the dark and where many people are in the dark. What happens when your light
mm-hmm.
gets extinguished?
Mm-hmm.
What
And
happens when you lose that light?
is that the speech that got you into the final?
That one got me into the finals, and so did
Okay.
Risk.
All right.
I talked about how we need to listen, and it was called the bottle. And I did a little trick where you put the cork in the bottle. It's a little
Mm-hmm.
bartending trick. You put the
Mm-hmm.
cork in the bottle, and you got to get the cork out. And I
Okay.
talked about it as a metaphor for how we work with students and how we work as leaders. That
Mm.
our job is not to stuff things into people, information or skill set. Our job is to pull the best out of people.
Great.
And
Great.
how do we do that? How do we build that sense of trust
Yeah.
without breaking
Yeah.
the bottle, breaking the cork? And it was a little bit pressure because you got 5 to 7 minutes, and you've got to. In my speech, I've got to pull that cork out of the bottle, and sometimes it doesn't work. You gotta be, you've got to have it down. Like a magician, you got to have it work perfectly each time, or it's dead in the water.
Yep.
And so while I'm pulling the cork out of the bottle, I'm also explaining these life lessons and talking about my experience with students.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end of it, you've got the cork out, and you're saying, you know what? We simply have to listen to the people that we're entrusted with leading, and we're going to be better leaders because of it.
I love it. I love it. Now, our viewers, they are looking for help with preparing their presentations, and that starts with the design of the presentation. How do you structure it and so on? So take one of those topics that got you this far and walk us through your own process on, once you have your title fixed, your topic, and this is what I want to talk about. How do you go about it to ensure that your opening has a hook that really gets people to start to pay attention from the first moment on and then keep their attention throughout? How do you map this out in your specific case? Everybody is different, of course, but in your specific case, because I'm sure someone who is preparing for an important business presentation can learn something from the steps that you took to get onto that stage and into the final 8 at the World Championship of Public Speaking.
Claudio, there are things that I do, and there are things that I know I'm supposed to do. I tell you what, I tell my students when they're building a speech: don't start with the beginning. Yes, you give your speech by saying the beginning, but don't start thinking of the beginning, because the beginning is the introduction. Well, now, how in the world are you supposed to write an introduction for a speech that you haven't written yet?
Mm.
You have to start with your message, and you have to start with the key points within. So you start with the message, you build up the key points that are evidence and hold up your speech, and then you go ahead and write your introduction after you've got the rest of it, and then you write your conclusion. Now, here's the fun part. What's the thread? Because you can have all that data, you can have all the information, but what's the thread that goes all the way through, that pulls it all along? It might be a quote. It might even be a very personal story. And you use that to hold it all together. And if you can find that piece, I think that's oftentimes the magical piece.
Mhm.
Amazing. Okay, no, I want to stay on that track for a minute because now you've got your script all written or you have your ideas in your mind about what you want to cover and you're talking my language. You have a clock in front of you. And that pretty much is the only kind of people I work with, people that have an 18-minute or less clock in front of them and it's a sharp time. So the biggest question that my clients always struggle with, and I'm sure our audience does too, is do I memorize or not? To memorize or not? I'd like to hear your perspective on this because of your experience with stage performances, which I suspect in many cases are to the word in the script because of the person who wrote that script. But, short of improv kind of situations, what's your advice when it comes to should I memorize it or should I just what?
I think my advice is that they should be a teacher for about 10 years. They'll learn how to improvise.
Great advice.
No, you when you're a teacher, you know your main point. You know you've got to get it done. But you also know that in about 20 minutes there's going to be a pep rally. In the first 5 minutes, you got to do the Pledge of Allegiance. And then that kid in the back who's pouring glue all over his desk, he's going to distract the entire class. And now you thought you had 30 minutes and you only have 15. What are you going to say? So because of that training, if you will, as a teacher and a little bit of improvisation from theater, I've learned that I don't want to write out a script because if something goes wrong, I don't want to have to go word for word for word for word. I want to have the basic gist of what I'm going to talk about. I have my outline. And do I need to skip a slot? Maybe. If all of a sudden the sound system goes down and when it finally gets the microphone to work, you've only got half the amount of time you have, well, you got to improvise. You got to get to the point. So you have to know how to do that. I also suggest this is about storytelling, right? We love to
Mhm.
use stories. Stories are just a magical way to get into an audience's heart and mind. Take your stories, be able to shorten your stories down to 1 minute for a quick answer, be able to shorten your stories down to about 15 seconds, such as an elevator speech, and then be able to take that story, build it, add to it, put a couple sandwiches in there, and all of a sudden now you've got a 3 to 4 minute story that you could use in an 18-minute keynote. So the story is like an accordion. It's longer, it's shorter. And we all know about telling stories over and over, right? It's like that crazy uncle or aunt at Thanksgiving dinner. And you're like, oh my gosh, this story again. Only this time they changed it up. Same thing. Same thing we're doing as speakers. We have that story. We're simply changing it up just a little bit to fit our audience. If I'm speaking to a group of students, the story fits one way. But if I'm speaking to a group of parents, the story has to fit a different way.
Amazing. Amazing. Okay. Now, I need more though, and I think our audience needs more. If I'm not going to memorize it and I've shortened it down, okay, now what? How do I go out there and give us a little bit more meat around the bones here? Okay, so now I know what the points are I want to say. I know the stories I want to cover. It's about a 7-minute thing, and now I've got 10 minutes to work with. How do they learn that? What do you tell them to do physically to get ready?
So, if we're talking about the structure of the script, we got to remember a couple things. No one likes a know it all. So, you don't have to go in there being the wise one. No, instead, you could play it like a stereotypical hero journey where you're the hero, but like in many hero stories, you're a little reluctant and you may have failed a little bit. And that's what's going to bring your audience in because everyone feels that too. Everyone in their mind goes, oh, yeah, I've felt that failure. Oh, yeah, I've had that imposter syndrome. So we have that hero journey where we're trying to move forward and we're greatness has been thrust upon us and we're not sure what to do with it. Somebody maybe helped us. Somebody gave us words of wisdom. we have the Obi-Wan Kenobi, the Gandalf, the wise character who gave us a little bit of sage advice, sprinkled a little fairy dust on us, and then we worked hard and poof, we climbed the mountain and we were able to have success, and now you can too. So if we follow that basic structure, it'll kind of take you through most of the kinds of speeches we have to do, unless you're supposed to be doing a quarterly report. That's going to be a little bit different. But physically, you want to think about, well, that's a whole other question. Do you want me to go into some of the physical or wait till later?
I
Fantastic.
actually just wanted to go there.
Okay.
I just wanted to go into the physical and then also into voice, because stories require great vocal control, vocal variety, and so on. So yes, cover physical and voice, because those are linked anyways as well.
Bear with me a little bit on this. Let's do some physical, but if you guys wouldn't mind doing a few things with me, would you guys simply take your heads and roll it around one way?
Ooh, that feels
Good, and
good.
roll it around the other way. This is going to look great on video, by the way. We can play some cool music. Something
I
from
hope
the
everybody
80s.
at home is doing this too, right?
Yeah, that's right. Come on now. We forget that our heads can move, don't we? We tend to see
Oh,
people right here. We
yeah.
forget that our heads can move, not just like, we're waiting for the mothership to come in, but we can tilt, tilt, eyebrows go up, our facial features move up, down, scrunch, big, and now we're engaging with the audience. Not engaging as in, I want to say something, and so I take this pose, but rather, I've said something,
Mhm,
and I'm inviting you to interact.
mhm,
I think that's the part that a lot of speakers forget. How do we invite discussion? I get it. It's basically a monologue. I'm the only one speaking because I'm the only one with a microphone. But if we pause, if we look, if we tilt our head, because how we move our head can shift the tone of what we're saying or not saying to invite our audience to consider. Again, I kind of did this with my students, They go, Mr. G, the dog ate my homework. Really? So our heads can do so much. And then next we go to our shoulders. Simple activity. Would you simply roll your arms forward? Great. And now back. I hope everybody in the studio audience is doing it too. Okay, now
yes.
here we go. One forward, one back. Come on, Claudio. One forward, one back. Try not to hit the cat.
Thank you. Yes.
This is when you have to think with both parts of your brain.
Yeah.
Now, at this point, everybody's like, I don't get what this is all about except making us look foolish on video. Think about how we generally use our hands in a presentation. They tend to be right here in front of us. Yeah, they tend to be right here in front of us. So when we move our hands outside of our body, it's different. And when it's different, the mind is engaged. It's different because it's outside of where we expect them to be. It's also different because we are crossing the planes. There are 3 planes, Planes, like geometric planes. One is right here. It divides left from right. So by having our hands cross the plane, it makes it more interesting. Otherwise, people tend to keep one hand on one side and the other hand on the other. So by crossing the planes, it makes it more interesting. The next plane is right here. It separates top from bottom. Now this plane can be here, it can be here, it can be here. What I'm trying to say is our hands tend to be right here and they don't go up or down. If we can get used to our hands moving, all of a sudden we've changed the dynamic of our body. And we forget we can do that, and so that's why you do a simple warm-up. The last plane is this one here, and that's front and back. We don't consider gesturing behind us, and yet it often has to happen. Consider PowerPoint. If you've got a PowerPoint, it's going to be behind you. But yet everybody does this. Oh, come on now. Why are you really looking at the... Right? What? Come on. That's not that interesting, Telly Savalas. So I don't know who gets that. I don't know. Nathan, you got it, right? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
So we gesture back all the time towards PowerPoints. Well, actually, we should, but we don't. But by understanding that our hands go backwards, we're like, oh, look at that. Our audience can see back there and keep eye focus. So why do I need my hands to go in two different directions? Because now you're going to do Tai Chi. No. So you can gesture this way and you can gesture to your audience.
Yeah.
You can see me in front of a classroom now, can't you? Right? Lucas,
Yes.
Tell me the answer. What's this country right here? Right? That's your own country, dude. Okay, so we can use our hands both ways. The other part to this is our hands can be asymmetrical. What do I mean by that? Well, most times hands are very symmetrical when they move. It's kind of like when I dance. I can only think of one thing to do, and I'm going to have both hands do it. So if I can think of asymmetrically, then I can even gesture at the other hand. So these are some of the things that we can do very simply with our gestures to help explain something that might be a little too abstract to explain with just words. Another thought. Would you gentlemen do this with me, please? Would you simply take your hand and drop it? Good. It happens that fast, right? And most times gestures are pretty quick. They're just like that. Now imagine listening to an 18-minute speech or 20-minute speech where somebody's gestures are always the same speed. We fall into a rhythm, don't we? We fall into a rhythm. Once we fall into a rhythm, we've lost our audience, just like I've lost my students in a class. I have to vary it up because we have such short... Sorry. I thought I saw a shiny object. We have such short attention... Oh, it's just my reflection in the glass. Sorry. We have such short attention spans. So we're always changing this picture. And so we can't just give our audience this, right? This is what I call forklift, by the way. Beep, 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 beep. I'm here to deliver a message. So we want to move out of that. We want to move out of that slow rhythm, same rhythm, palms up, I got nothing to offer you rhythm. I mean, this is like, when the dealer at blackjack goes, I got no chips in my hand. So I was demonstrating how our hands fall at the same speed and rhythm. Now do this for me, sirs. Take your hand up here. High five each other. No. And I want you to lower your hand at the same speed that I'm lowering it, okay? And I'm going to count to 5. Ready? Here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I think I froze, but I really did move my hand down. Now imagine the other hand. Try this. Move it from one side of your screen to the other. Ready? Okay, I'm trying to get on the screen. Okay, here we go. I'm going to do it on 10 seconds. Ready? And go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We forget about duration of gesture. So imagine you're going to talk about the day that your dad left. And you're saying, my dad picked up his suitcase, walked across the living room. He walked past my mother. He opened the door. He took one look back at me, and he left forever. Using your hand, you can help the audience see that image. You can use your hands and the duration to talk about how things evolve, how your heart slowly grew, how you became a warmer individual because of somebody in your life. And by changing up that speed, by changing up that rhythm, by changing the duration, by changing the direction, you can simply, very simply, add so much more texture to the physical presentation.
Wow.
Amazing.
Wow. Fursey, we are helping people to improve their public speaking on this show, and you have just raised the bar. I don't know what I'm gonna do with the next couple of PitchZone episodes, but uh, we also are running short on time. We only have another 4 minutes left. So in those 4 minutes, can you share one or two tips on how to improve voice? So many people, they say, I don't like my voice. And I believe it's perhaps in some cases a little bit lack of training or knowing what to do with the voice. But once they do, maybe all of a sudden they start to like their own voice. So do you have any tips there that can fit in about 2, 3 minutes?
The first thing you do when you wake up is say, "Hello, world." I
Hmm.
mean, before you raise your head up off the pillow, before you grab your phone, right, Claudia? I know. Yeah, I know. The first thing you do is, "Hey, who texts me in the middle of the night?" Hum and say something out loud. "Hello, how are you?" And then hopefully your wife doesn't go, "Hey, it's me, you jerk." So, but when we wake up, that's our natural voice. That's our nice, deep voice. The next time you yawn, oh, let her rip. Now, don't do it in front of your
Oh.
mother-in-law, man. Come on. Come on. Have some taste. Okay, so great. A mother-in-law joke. I promised I wouldn't do that. The next thing is stand in front of your mirror and you make that promise to yourself. You say, "Today I will speak with a rich, round, resonant voice." Say it with me, everyone. Here we go. Today I
Today
will
I
speak
will speak with a
with
With
rich
a
a
rich,
rich,
and rounded
round,
voice.
round
resonant
voice.
voice.
Resonant voice.
There you go. And so we're working many different consonants, we're working many different vowels, and we're letting ourselves be proud of that nice voice that we got. And that's for men and women. In the morning, that's when we have the voice. We make that promise to ourselves and we say, "I'm going to speak like this." Lastly, in the last 30 seconds we have, when I rehearse a speech, I rehearse it with a song. And I find the song that
Mm.
matches the tone, the tenor, the
Wow.
content of the speech, even. And a song will naturally have rhythms, right? That's why it's a song. I mean, not Gregorian chant, but So you go ahead and find that rhythm, and by repeating the speech, you'll find yourself sort of matching the song and realizing, I gotta go high, I gotta go low. And you're going to match it, you're going to go a little faster. You'll even find yourself repeating certain words for emphasis. Boom, baby. Now you got something magical.
Oh,
Fursey, thank you. This
wow.
is absolutely amazing, Fursey. And everybody who's watching this, either live today, if you ask some other questions, I'm sorry we didn't get to those questions. Um, I'm blown away, really, seriously. And I've been doing this for a living for a while, but my mind is blown. You really have shared a couple of tips that are unbelievable. I thank you so much for taking the time to come here today and share with us what it really, really takes, that small difference to make a good speech absolutely great and world championship worthy. So thank you very much, Fursey. Thank you, Nathan, of course, as every week. Thanks everyone who joined us here online. And if you want to get in touch with Fursey, look down in the description of this video. His LinkedIn link is gonna be there. Not for you, Fursey, but somewhere else. And get in touch with Fursey. Again, thank you so much also for spending your evening, because in China right now it's what, 9 o'clock in the evening, 10 o'clock, 11?
It's
No,
coming up on 11 o'clock, but it's been a pleasure.
11. Thank you so much. Fursey, you're a rock star. Thank you. And everybody, wherever you are in the world, have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, and we shall see each other again next week. Have fun.
Thanks,
Bye
Claudio.
bye.
Bye.